Hi, this is Troy Hunt, and I'd like to talk to you about 5 of the top security risks on the web today that you need to understand. If you're in any way responsible for information systems that touch the web, and these days that's just about all of them, then these are 5 really valuable risks for you to get a bit of an overview of. So let's jump in and see what I'm talking about. Very briefly about me, I am Troy Hunt. I do a lot of training on information security. You'll often find me at events speaking about security online and often writing and talking to organisations about how they can better secure their systems. You can find me on Twitter at Troy Hunt or via my webpage on troyhunt.com. That's enough about me. Let's jump in and start looking at why we need to be talking about online security. Online attacks are big business. Recently, Verizon released their 2015 edition of the Data Breach Investigations Report, and they found that just over the period of the prior year, we were looking at somewhere in the order of $400 million of loss across 700 million compromised records, and they are just staggering volumes. Now, partly the size and impact of these breaches is reflective of just how much information we have online today. Part of it's due to how many more devices and applications we have collecting data every day. And of course, part of it again is reflective of the increasing sophistication of online attackers. And when you see numbers like this, you understand what a big business it is for those that are financially motivated to break into systems. Let's go and have a look at just some of the breaches we've seen over recent years, and I found a great visualization of it. This is a great way of looking at some of the world's biggest data breaches. It's courtesy of informationisbeautiful.net. And what we're seeing here is a bubble graph of different breaches that exposed in excess of 30,000 records. Now, as this data scrolls down, you'll see some very familiar names, perhaps some that you didn't even know had suffered from data breaches. And as it scrolls back through the years, you get a sense of just how many incidents of a really serious scale there've been. You also notice as we scroll back further, there are actually fewer bubbles, fewer incidents. And in fact, as we get back to around a decade ago, the density of the bubbles is significantly less than what we're seeing today in 2015. So data breaches are an increasingly prevalent problem, and the security of our information systems is becoming more critical than ever. So that's just a brief introduction of why we really need to be focusing on security. Let's move on, and I'll give you a quick overview of what we're going to cover throughout the remainder of this video. Admittedly, it's hard to pick just 5 security risks to talk about, so I decided to focus on the ones that are the most prevalent, the ones that have the highest impact, and indeed in some cases the ones that are the easiest to exploit. So for example, SQL injection. Now by many measures, this remains the number 1 risk on the web today. It'd be hard to do a top 5 and not talk about SQL injection. So we're going to start off with that one. We'll then move on to insufficient transport layer security. So we're going to be talking about SSL, its successor, TLS, and its implementation across the web using HTTPS. And we'll look at a few different aspects of transport layer security when we get to that section of the video. We're also going to look at insecure password storage. We see so many breaches online today, so many cases of passwords which were kept private in systems, then being leaked online. The way those passwords stored is absolutely paramount when it comes to protecting them in the event of a breach. So we're going to look at some bad practices and then talk about the way we need to be doing this. Cross-site scripting is another big one that's often up there in the top few risks on the web. Like SQL injection, this is a risk that has been around for a long time, yet it still remains very prevalent. So I'm going to show you just how that works and how an attacker can exploit it to steal information from victims. And finally, we'll also look at weak account management. And there are a number of different practices which constitute weak account management. We're going to talk about a few of those, and I'm going to give you a good walkthrough on one in particular that's been in the news a little bit lately. So they're the 5 risks that we're going to cover in this course. And for each of these, I'm going to give you an overview of how the risk works. So we'll talk through a quick diagram of the mechanics. I'm going to give you an example of the risk in practice. So I will actually be doing demonstrations here as well. And then we're going to talk about some defenses. Usually not just one defense, but multiple ways that we can strengthen systems against these risks. So this is all going to be very practical, very easily consumable information, and very valuable for anyone responsible for protecting information systems. So let's jump into it, and we'll start by looking at SQL injection.